please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Remind you to please silence your electronic devices. That'd be appreciated. Good evening, everyone. I call the Village of Massena Board of Trustees, March 7, 2017 meeting to order. Roll call, Mr. Offeld.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Carvel.
Here.
Mr. Shays.
Here.
Mr. LeBeer.
Here.
I am here. Reports of officers and committees. Code enforcement, Mr. Carvel, Mr. LeBeer.
I don't have anything.
Economic Development Committee, Mr. Offeld, Mr. LeBeer. Fire Committee, Mr. Carvel, Mr. LeBeer.
Nothing reported this time.
Personnel Committee, Mr. Carvel, Mr. Shays.
We're gonna have some, we'll be sitting around here interviews later this week for the position of the fire department.
Police Committee, Mr. Carvel, Mr. Shays.
There's a couple items for later on in the agenda.
Recreation Commission, Mr. Shays.
Nothing to report this time. Our regular meeting will be next Tuesday.
Street Committee, Mr. Offeld, Mr. LeBeer.
Nothing to report.
We are out working on potholes, in case anybody asks. If they have one that we're missing, have them call Public Works, so we should call. Water and Sewer Committee, Mr. Offeld, Mr. LeBeer.
Nothing to report.
Initial public comment period, as always, we ask you to please stand and state your name for the record. Initial public comment period.
I know Dave Google's got something he wants to say.
Yeah, Dave Goulden, 51 Urban Drive, and I'm just wondering who sent this guy out at 5 o'clock in the morning to push dirt up higher in that pile they got out there.
Many times.
You know, and it's not only that one day, this is a couple weeks ago. And the thing is, when they wake you up at that time, you can't go back to sleep. And me, it bothers me a couple days.
Okay. I'll talk with the superintendent.
It's a bunch of crap. It's nothing an emergency type deal.
Mr. Gold, this was last week?
About a week or so ago.
Okay.
But other times they've been out there at 3 o'clock in the morning doing what? Nothing. Just driving around, pushing a little bit of snow here or there. It can be done in 5 minutes some other time, you know. But 5 o'clock in the morning is uncalled for. It's not an emergency, what it isn't. They're shoving that pile up all day long, and some guy decides to go out there at 5 o'clock in the morning, pushing up a little higher, for what reason?
Valid concern.
Pam Barkley, it's with a C-L-A-Y, in case you're going to print it. I'm shocked at the piles and piles behind Dave Goulden's house and Pat Ferguson's house. They're higher. It's like, just like you said, in the middle of the night they appear. They're higher than the homes down there. Sand, gravel,
Dirt.
yeah, dirt. And what about the berm that we were all promised? And you talk about prevailing winds. I know right where they're gonna prevail is right in Ferguson's pool. It'll be full. I'm totally shocked, because I mean, I walk my dog every day down through there, and all of a sudden, there they are. There's about 5 of them, at least 4 for sure, at least 5. And just like he said, they appeared almost overnight. And I know at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm down the road further, but I can hear them. Bang after bang after bang after bang. I know you had a job to move whatever you had to move. But with all the land that you had, did it have to be right with, what is your house, second house, third house?
Yeah, fourth.
The first three houses, 4 or 5 houses down there? I mean, you had all kinds of land.
Get that field right out front.
I don't know, it's
I'm
just.
sure that they didn't put it there because it would blow towards the office.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I know we listened to you and we thought we could trust you. And I thought you probably had a plan too, but I think you need to keep working on it again. more still. Thank you.
I just wanted to add something. It's not a fact that we don't trust you, Tim, we really do, you know. What we really need to get across to the whole board is the amount of what these people are putting up with over there. It's just ridiculous. That's what we're complaining about. It's, you know, and if they call Haas, they're sick of calling Haas, okay? You call them, and what happens? They'll say, okay, you're doing this or whatever, and then before you know it, things are happening over on our street just because we're complaining. Certain things like noise, so if you complain, then you get more noise. And that's ridiculous. I mean, this is child play, which is ridiculous. So they really need to, you know, employees really need to take consideration of the residents over there. That is a residential area over there. And please treat us like one. That's all we're saying.
And I'd like to add my 2 cents. I'm Diane Meyer. I also live on Urban Drive and live behind these people. And we were told countless times that there was going to be like 200 feet of trees between where they were piling all of this stuff and the backyards of the people. They were further down the street than I am. There's no 200 feet of trees. There were a lot more trees there before they started cutting them down. That's another thing. They've been cutting trees down that would be blocking some of this. But it's getting ridiculous, and like everybody says, you can hear it anytime during the night, and that's with our windows closed. I can imagine what it's going to be in the spring when we can start having our windows open, because it'll wake you up out of a sound sleep now. And that the beep, beep, beep as the trucks back up and all that kind of stuff, we hear it all night long. So,
I just wish you'd drive down and take a look. Take a look for yourselves, please.
it really is. It's getting ridiculous.
You know, another thing, through the grapevine, we're hearing that, well, nobody's complaining anymore and crap like that, so we're gonna put it over there anyways. So,
Well, I know
why
you had
do
to move
we have to
it.
come to every meeting to complain? I think go on record that all of everything I've complained about is there permanently, you know?
Just keep looking, keep thinking of us, and
Thank you. Further public comment? Old business discussion, establish a public hearing, date revisions to chapter 270, taxi cabs of the general code. Mr. LeBear, you had some suggestions earlier in the week via the email.
Yeah, we had great turnout last time, and there was some concerns raised by some business owners and employees, specifically to the age requirement for vehicles, and then also suggestion of drug testing employees. Personally, I think there's a good balance that can be struck between the needs of the code and protection, but also being responsible to business owners and making it feasible for them to continue to operate successfully. I'm throwing out the idea of making it from 10 years to increasing it to 12. I think during the conversation, I think Trustee Carbo had asked him a couple of questions about what year car he normally buys, how long he keeps them, and doing some quick math, it looks like a 12-year time frame would probably resolve a bulk of the issues that he raised with the frequency required for cars and so throwing it out for the discussion in terms of I certainly would be interested in raising that up from 10 to 12. We also talked about inspection frequency. I'm open on that. Once a year is fine with me if it's 12. We want to do it twice a year. Don't want to be a burden to chief or police who are going to potentially having to be tasked with administering this. So if we keep it once a year and the state says it's safe to drive, I think we'd be okay. And personally, I'm also open to the drug testing, and I was curious if we could put in the code language that the cost of it be bared by the employer. That way there we prevent any scenario where someone's out of work, doesn't have a lot of money, the $50 to $100 for a drug test may be an unbearable cost for that individual, whereas we heard from one of the main employers that he thinks it'd be responsible employer's, thing to do is to pay for it. So didn't sound like it'd be that much of a burden on the employers. Probably saves them money long-term by avoiding any problematic employees. So those are my thoughts. I don't know.
I think I covered basically the high-level items that we talked about, and I agree with you on that. 10 to 12, I think Mr. Zacharakis had said that he was in the 2004 to 2006 range of his vehicles, phasing the fours out. And that would, and I'm almost positive I heard him say 12 would be a better number. So.
Yeah, I think he would prefer 15 if he was writing himself, but 12 at least gives him some buffer on the other owners as well.
And as far as the drug testing, I think that's a super idea. And the inspections, I think at first get very aggressive and said every quarter. I think leaving the inspections where they are, and we don't want to burden our people with any more of that task.
The state continues to get more aggressive with their inspections anyways, so
Right.
I don't know if you guys.
So make the changes and we'll bring it up at the next.
To make the changes, we'll establish the new public hearing at the next meeting for the following meeting. And then it's time to make sure the language is right, alert them so they can come and give us any input before we put a final language.
Perfect.
Okay, good. New business, proposed resolution, approved shared services agreement with New York State DOT.
Second.
Mr. LeBeer, second by Mr. Rothfeld. Discussion. This is our standard annual resolution for shared services with DOT. Resolution, Paul Grizzly. Mr. Rothfeld.
Aye.
Mr. Carl. Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. LeBeer.
Aye.
Resolution carries. Appointment of Reverend Dr. Joel Grigg, Village of Massena Planning Board Commission.
So moved.
Mr. Rothfeld.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carl. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Accept notice of retirement, Cynthia Bain, civilian dispatcher. Chief?
Yeah, last week I was informed by Cindy Bain that effective June 3rd, she would like to retire. Cindy was the first full-time dispatcher that was hired at our police department, and I'd like to thank her for her years of service that she gave us. Our dispatchers are an asset to the village. She'll be sorely missed, and I wish her the best for her next adventure.
So, second.
Mr. LeBeer, second by Mr. Rothfeld. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Authorization to canvass civilian dispatcher. Chief?
I just asked the village if they would allow me to canvass for a dispatcher. It allows me proper time to pick the right candidate, have that candidate brought to the village board to ask to be hired.
So moved.
Mr. LeBeer, second by Mr. Carville. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Voucher warrants.
I move that the vouchers signed by trustee Carvel and myself be approved.
Second by Mr. Carville. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Monthly reports, you have the volunteer fire department and fire departments in front of you. Communications correspondence, I have none. Trustees?
The FFD, the St. Lawrence County Treasurer, workers' compensation claim liability. Do we know how much ours went up by?
It wasn't significant.
Okay.
I asked that question, I don't remember, but it didn't startle me, so.
Good sign.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Closing public comment period. Mr. Gregg.
Sean Gray, 5060 Strawberry Street. I wasn't able to be here on the 21st for the public hearing on the complete streets. What I had read about that before was there were going to be bump outs at the crosswalks. Will that be something that will be automatic, or will businesses have to apply for that? I'll just explain to you real quick why. We're going to be putting the marquee back up at the theater, and before it was taken down, it got whacked a few times by delivery trucks and some tractor trailers going by, and I'm just curious if there's going to be a sort of bump out.
It wouldn't be automatic. We'll be forming a committee. The complete street policy calls for the formation of a committee. We'll be forming it actually be looking for a couple of test projects. So any business organization interested, definitely contact me or the mayor, and we can proceed from there. There's some potential small funding available from other entities that may assist us with any projects, but it doesn't call for automatic bump outs at certain locations or anything.
Will those be the responsibility of the business owner, or will that be part of the DPW?
It's not even a responsibility, it's more, these are design standards and ideas that we want to keep in mind as we're doing projects, and we encourage private entities to do it as well. So we made sure not to make an imposition on those who may not want or have the means to immediately do something, but for those who may be interested, we'll gladly work with and see what's out there.
But I guess just to follow, there will be a component that the business may be asked to pay for part of that?
No.
Oh, no, okay.
No.
Okay, very good.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Further public comment?
What does bump out mean? Is that the phrase, did I hear that correctly?
So
Yes.
you're approaching where a crosswalk would be.
Okay.
The best way I can describe it, the curb is actually bumped out. So
Oh,
you might not
so
say
it's
flower
like a
pots.
bottleneck.
So you don't have vehicles parked close to the crosswalk, so it's more visibility for vehicular traffic to see pedestrian traffic.
I can send you a couple of examples if you like, because there's permanent bump outs and there's also temporary bump outs.
I think that answers my question, thank you.
Any questions from the media? We do need a executive session regarding collective bargaining. I do not anticipate that we will take action. Motion, Mr. Revere, second by Mr. Rothwell. All those in favor, signify by saying